Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 24 of the Enrollment Marketing Geeks Show and Tell Show. I'm Andy Lynch, President and CEO of Tassel, and with me is my good friend, Dr. Rick Newberry with Enrollment Catalyst. Hello, Rick. How are you?
Doing great. Good to see you, Andy.
Likewise, good to be with you again. We have an exciting episode today. We are going to be focusing on warning signs, early indicators of a school in decline, and what to do about those indicators. And I'm sure we've got schools of all states logged in, some that are healthy and thriving, and others might feel like they're sort of on the brink. They could go either way, and some that realize, you know what, we've got an issue here that we need to figure out. So regardless of where you are, we're glad you're here. We hope this is helpful. We've got an action-packed episode. Just a few housekeeping items to share with you as we get started. First, if you're not familiar with us, my friend Dr. Rick Newberry, if you would, tell us a little bit about Enrollment Catalyst.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I've been doing this for 15 years now, where schools will hire me to come alongside and assess their enrollment and marketing processes and strategies to put together a plan and help them implement that plan over time. So, worked with well over 500 schools, and it's been a great ride. I also provide surveys and secret shopping experiences, and just recently have launched my AI Catalyst training program, which is scheduled to launch in a couple weeks. So there's still time to sign on for that. I've got a number of schools who've already indicated that they're going to participate. So if that interests you, take a look at my website or reach out to me. I'm glad to be able to have you as part of that training. So tell us about yourself, Andy, and Tassel.
Yep, Andy Lynch, President and CEO of Tassel, based here in North Carolina, with team members spread out across the U.S. and a few other countries. There are 26 of us on the Tassel team, and we help schools a variety of ways: online marketing, helping them connect with prospective right fit families through those digital strategies; academic and athletic branding, that can be anything from just a refresh of a tired brand to comprehensive renaming and brand standards; website development. We do a lot of work with schools in refreshing their web presence, that always on 24/7 representative of the school. Messaging by age and stage, it's a signature solution for us here at Tassel, where we help schools articulate their value proposition by division, by age and stage. And then Right Fit Family Rubric, another signature solution for us here. I find that schools make a lot of assumptions about who they're for, and they have a lot of institutional knowledge between the ears, but it's pretty amazing when you actually start documenting who your school is for, the assumptions that you drive out, the framework the rubric that you use to evaluate family fit. It's an eye-opening process. That's a little bit about Tassel. We've got, as I said, a great show scheduled today, but the show and tell show, if this is your first time dialing in, this series is based around a question that Rick and I hear a lot from schools. It's a natural curiosity, like, what are other schools doing? What do you see other schools doing about this or about this? So we heard that enough. We thought, you know what, let's just make a show out of it. So the show and tell show is the show that showcases schools doing something worth showing off. And in this case, we're going to be drawing from our experiences in consulting with schools in various states of growth and decline, and showcasing some concerning trends, but also what to do when you see those. So on the way in, what other show and tell shows do we have coming up? On the 19th, implementing an effective student ambassador program. And if we get a little turned around today, it's because we actually recorded that one yesterday, which is a little weird. Doing this one live, we pre-recorded that one, just given our travel schedules. On March the 12th, we have AI in action. You've probably heard Rick and I talk a lot about Halda, that AI-powered platform that sits on a school website and converts traffic into inquiries. We're going to talk about Halda, that we're a little over a year into working with that tool, and invite some schools to share with you from their experience. And then on March 19, decisions that drive enrollment growth. Rick, talk to me a little bit about that particular show and tell show. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, we've invited Dr. Tony Fajardo, who's the head of school at Kings Ridge Christian in Alpharetta, Georgia, to be our guest in that show. And he's going to be talking from his experience about what he's doing in his first year as head of school there and his prior experience at Ben Lippen in Columbia, South Carolina, where he helped the school grow exponentially from 700 to well over 1,100 students during his tenure. And so you'll be able to hear from head of school about what he has done, but it's pertinent to not only leaders in that role, but also admissions and marketing directors and staff, because he's going to talk about how he has worked with his teams to be able to unite the vision for growth and be able to move schools forward.
Yeah, Tony's a dynamic leaders can be a great conversation.
And by the way, I just wanted to put in a plug for next week's show and tell show. You mentioned that we have actually, great recording. We have two panelists who are part of that show. You don't want to miss that. And they talk from their experiences. They both have robust student ambassador programs. And so you don't want to miss out on that one. So stay tuned for next week.
Yes, by all means, join for that one as well. On the subject of big stuff coming up, we are thrilled to share with you, as an extension of the Enrollment Marketing Geeks on the Road series, we're actually going to do 2 virtual workshops this year under the name the Enrollment Marketing Geeks GeekCon, as in get your GeekCon at the GeekCon, the virtual enrollment marketing workshops from the Enrollment Marketing Geeks. These are programs that we have done through our Geeks on the Road format as in-person workshops. We wanted to do these in a virtual forum. We know for some schools, travel is a barrier. So we're going to do these. The first one, Family Journey Workshop, April 15 and 16 from 11:30 a.m. to 4 Eastern. So on both days, 11:30 to 4. April 15 and 16. Then we're going to do the admissions playbook workshop, July 22 and 23, also 11:30 to 4, both days. We've had hundreds of people come through these workshops, and we've done them in person over the last few years. And we're excited about doing a virtual format. There is the Way Early Nerd discount in effect right now. So I encourage you, go register you and your team to join us for those virtual workshops. More information available at enrollmentmarketinggeeks.com. But you know what? We love getting together with you nerds in person too, which is why we're going to convene a group for the Enrollment Marketing AI Summit in Orlando, Florida, with our friends at the First Academy in Orlando. That's going to be November 11 and 12. That's a day and a half format where we're going to get tactical and practical with AI. There's a lot just in terms of theory and philosophy and frameworks. This is going to be highly collaborative, whether you're just getting started or you're a power user. There's going to be a lot of value for you and your team. We will have limited seating. Matter of fact, Rick and I are going to be with the folks at the First Academy later this month to do some planning around that. So stay tuned at enrollmentmarketinggeeks.com for more details. But again, we've got the Early Nerd Special live right now.
And if you've ever wanted your own set,
that's right.
You have to earn these.
Yeah,
and the only way to earn them is participating in one of our events that are up and coming. So make sure you join us.
You can be stylish too in this way if you like. So big announcements from Enrollment Marketing Geeks. We're looking forward to those virtual and in-person gatherings later this year. Okay. As you know, we don't take ourselves too seriously. And sometimes we have some really good dad jokes, sometimes some not so good ones. Let's see which one this is. Rick, go for it.
So what do you call a cow that lays down in the grass? Ground beef.
Yeah, my daughter Lucy loves this one. Okay.
Does she?
So she loves this one. So on to our topic of the day, warning signs, early indicators of a school in decline and what you can do about them. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you, Rick. And it could seem like a bit of a downer, like, oh, we're going to talk about decline, warning signs, like what should we be looking for? We're going to focus on the positive. But I think it's valuable for us to be plugged into the reality that is, rather than the one that we want to see. So help us frame in this topic for today, Rick. I mean, why are we focusing on warning signs here at the Show and Tell Show?
I think it's important for schools to think about, their situation and what the alert system that they would be paying attention to that would help them think about where their school is at. If typically, schools will decline maybe slowly over time. And so it's important to be able to see those indicators. So it is an important issue. Schools don't necessarily just experience a sudden drop in enrollment, although we've seen that. And there's usually issues that lead to that sudden decline in enrollment. But it can show up certainly as drift. So it might be a drift in the leadership vision and philosophy. It could be a drift in the mission of the school. It could be a drift in how you're doing admissions and marketing. A lot of issues that create and cause drift. And so it's important to be able to pay attention to these early signals along the way, because that's going to give you an opportunity to make some course correction. I mean, a typical head of school, if they're engaged in the enrollment and marketing effort, they're going to be looking at the numbers, and they're always going to want to see a comparison from one year to the next. And if you see a decline setting in, you're going to want to know what's happening, what's going on, what do we need to do to be able to course correct the situation, because we can't continue to go in the same situation. I don't know of any leader that sets out to see an institution or a school decline. They always want to at least maintain, keep stable, and in most cases, grow and continue to enhance and improve the experience. So all that's important. And I think another factor in terms of why this is important, a lot of schools experience this surge as a result of COVID. We saw that across the country, especially where, families were calling because they were looking for a school that was open, and their kids weren't learning on Zoom, and they were concerned about what was happening in the public schools. So that resulted in a lot of private schools experiencing the exponential increases, and that actually pushed some schools to capacity. The reality is that surge is over. That's behind us. Now, some schools have remained full, and we've talked about that before, but I'm seeing other schools that are struggling. That surge is over, and now we've got to look at what's going on, because they're leaving or they're not coming to us in mass like they did before. So what's going on? We have to solve those issues. So I think this is a very important topic. And so, I mean, you may be sitting out there and watching us, and your enrollment's full and you've had steady growth over the last several years. This is still important for you too, because you need to take a look at your school and be careful about any of these early warning signs that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and some schools achieve a measure of health and are not quite sure how they got there. What were the dynamics that moved them to a position of strength? And then there's this complacency that can set in. It's like, oh, we're just that good. But
Right.
Full enrollment today is no guarantee of full enrollment tomorrow. And I would also see quite a few folks in the sidebar here who have been through my workshop or our Geeks on the Road workshops, and they've heard us talk about there's a difference between healthy enrollment and full enrollment.
Right.
School can be full but not be healthy, and you can also be healthy but not full. When you think about that sort of 2x2 quadrant of full, not full, healthy, not healthy, you don't want to end up in that quadrant where you're neither full nor healthy, and that's a serious, dire place to be. But you need to have a strategy regardless of which quadrant that you're in. So let's move to some of these early warning signs here. And we tend to think about these in sort of three buckets. You've got the environmental factors that have warning signs. I think you also have sort of leadership and governance as bucket number 2. And then there's the enrollment signals as well, bucket number 3. So let's talk about environmental factors. Rick, when I say environmental factors that can impact enrollment, What do we mean by that term, environmental factors? Give us a quick sketch of that.
Yeah, think about what's happening outside of your school. Basically, the areas, your environment that is outside of your control. That's the key, to be able to consider, because everything's changing. I mean, you look at, for example, what happened in 2008. If we go back, if you were working in admissions or school leadership at the time, that's when the recession hit. And so that's an environmental factor that you had no control over. Certainly, if you could have stopped the recession, you would have done it, but you can't do that. And so you're dealing with the reality of this external factor from the environment that's leading to a decline. We've seen other things, Andy, like changes in local demographics.
Yeah.
You can't often pick up your school and move to another location, and you can't predict what's going to happen in your local geography, with the community. I've seen schools where communities have changed and turned, and that's affected the overall enrollment in the school. So, and it could be other factors like partnerships. I've seen this in some situations with like Catholic high schools that I've worked with. They rely upon their partner feeder schools, the elementary, middle schools that are usually connected with a local parish, feeding into their high school. As their enrollment and demographics change and slide, that affects the overall enrollment feeding into the high school. And I've also seen this in, Christian schools across the country where, there's a dependency upon a church denominational group or strength of churches within their community. As those churches change and decline, it affects the overall feeder into the school. So those are all outside of the control of the school itself. And so those environmental factors can have an impact upon your enrollment, and you should pay attention to what's going on around you. I wrote down a note. Go ahead, Andy.
Those can be episodic, like a major employer.
Yeah.
Either comes to the area or shuts down a plant.
Right.
Or it could be that a feeder school that has been feeding into your high school decides, like, maybe we should continue all the way through grade 12. So those are real world examples of environmental factors, and that sort of classic SWOT analysis. You could think of these as the T, the threats, the external threats that are beyond your control. And in some cases, there's also this sort of slow fade where certain neighborhoods around you can change in terms of the demographic and the socioeconomic status of that was able within that particular community to support a school of your size. So those environmental scans can be really helpful for you to just keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your local community and the potential upshot, whether favorably or unfavorably, for your enrollment effort.
Right. I want to add another one into that category because I've heard this over and over again with schools. It's competition that wasn't before that is now. And that may be in the form of newer, shinier public schools or charter schools. That's a common one. Again, so you have to be aware of what's going on in your local community with your competition.
And school choice.
Oh, yeah.
That's another one. I'm thinking about one school in particular with campuses just across state lines, where one has school choice, another does not, within the same school system. So, environmental factors can include voucher programs, et cetera. So let's talk about the next early warning sign here, and that's challenges within leadership and governance. And, for me, as we've heard the truism, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I think one of the most important aspects of leadership in the independent school world is the power of vision. Does the head of school, and by extension, that leadership team, the board, have a inspiring and compelling vision? And when I think about vision, let me define my terms here. I think there's a trinity of foundational commitments for independent and faith-based schools. It's your mission, your vision, your core values. So mission, Why are we here? Why do we exist? Vision, where are we going? Core values, how do we behave along the way? And in some cases, if I've seen schools that have a pretty buttoned up mission statement, but they don't have a vision statement. And I think, okay, so do people understand where we're going? Like, what is our shared and compelling and inspiring version of the future that we are pursuing? And you can have some great talent at your school, some faculty and staff are just remarkable. But if they don't feel like the school is going somewhere, it can be all motor and no rudder. It's like we're going, but I'm not sure where we're going. That can be enough for them to say, I think I want to be a part of something else where there is strong leadership. There's a sense of we have a shared version of the future that we are pursuing because we believe in what we do. I think that compelling leadership, if it's not there, that version of the future, that can be discouraging for faculty and staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything from the leader being able to make sure the right people are in the right seats at your school. And so too often we may hug someone and keep them along on our staff and they're not in the right position, the right fit, and that affects the overall health of the school. And so we have to be the leader has to be about preserving the excellence throughout the organization, throughout the school, and having the right people in the right seats. I mean, Jim Collins talks about that in his book, Good to Great. So very, very important. And that translates to, the admissions and marketing roles.
Yeah.
And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of leaders in those positions. And it's always interesting to see those that really get it and those that just don't. They're a misfit for that position. And so the school is only going to be as good as the faculty and staff who are hired to do the job. That's where things will break down, especially with leadership. We've also seen some issues with like board dynamics, where the board steps in and gets too involved in operations. I've seen it in some recent schools where the head of school was let go for a variety of reasons. Again, right decision, but it still had fallout with the enrollment because you have issues of loyalty to that leader. Some people, they're not excited about that person leaving, wondering what was going on. It creates instability in the school, especially if it doesn't come at a traditional time in transition within a school. So, leadership from the board level, from the head of school level, is so critical and can be an issue that affects the overall enrollment health of a school and can lead potentially to its decline.
Another aspect of this is just a lack of courage. You can have leaders who know the right thing that they need to do, but if they don't have the courage to make the tough calls, for example, they've got wrong fit families and they know it and they're hearing about it from faculty and staff, just like, do you guys have our backs or not here? And they're just willing to limp along and say, well, we're going to hope they can turn it around. Or just, you touched on this earlier, wrong fit faculty and staff. Right. You and I, been quite a few years ago, but we worked on a school together. And the survey feedback, we're losing people in this particular grade. We can't figure out why. And there was a beloved teacher who'd been there for hundreds of years. And she'd been there so long, she was actually falling asleep during class.
It's a true story.
This is a true story. No one had the courage to say, we love her, but her time is done here. It's becoming a liability. So chronic lack of investment in core product. And this is another area of leadership. If the product itself isn't strong, then people are going to have to work hard to stay there. Where have you seen this, just a lack of investment in the core product? What do we mean by that, Rick?
Yeah, it just could be with the quality of the academic program. Making sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing, within the classroom, adding additional programs like whether it's STEM or robotics or whatever it may be to support the continual advancement of the program. Um, it's coasting, sitting back and just letting things continue in the way that we've always done them without working to see quality improvements across the board. And so when a leader doesn't seek that investment, there's going to be shinier, newer competitors that pop up that are going to draw your families away. And so
Yeah.
that's going to result in that decline.
Yeah. I think the last one that sticks out to me under this category of leadership and governance drift is just undisciplined growth. Like, man, we got to line out the door and we're going to get all we can get while the getting's good. And if you're not careful, the flavor of your culture will change, and not for the better.
Right.
If you have undisciplined growth, you could also set yourself up for some pretty reckless growth, taking on projects, based on an influx of interest that you may not be able to sustain when things shake out. Like, okay, the people who really want to be here are going to stay, and the ones who weren't here for the right reasons decide to leave. You can end up in a pretty difficult place financially if you committed based on these certain projections in a season of undisciplined growth. That third bucket, the enrollment signals, the financial signals. Talk to me a little bit about this category, Rick. I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's important to understand your data and what your data is telling you. So, for example, key metrics like your retention rate, where is that at? I'm always amazed when I work with a school and they don't even know their retention rate from last year to this year. How are they going to be able to see any type of decline or any early warning signals along the way? So 90% and higher is certainly the great threshold to be able to look at. I think, for example, in the new student side of things in admissions, making sure you understand your admissions funnel data. Like right now, if I'm working with a school, I'm asking, how do your numbers compare to the last couple of years? Are we up or down in inquiries and visits and applications and accepts? All those are important metrics to be able to consider. And it's typically what a leader and a board are interested in. So it's important to be able to understand those key data points in the enrollment areas, because that's going to help drive the issues that you're facing and help you understand what you need to do as you move forward.
Yeah. Another area related to enrollment is just the tuition is set too low.
Yeah.
And if your tuition is set too low, you're not going to make it up on volume. Just a hesitance to charge fairly for the value that you're creating for families. And I get the mindset like, oh, we don't want to price ourselves out. There are families who are struggling to be here, and I get that. I mean, that's where a well thought through financial aid program comes into play. But I mean, to be a going concern where you can invest in your product and invest in your people, you got to charge what you're worth. And I just see a hesitancy in some cases for them to have the courage to make those tuition adjustments. And you don't have to do it all at once. I mean, you can step it up. But in some cases, I can think of several schools where the new sheriff in town has said, "What, we're charging this for this? We got to go up 20%." And ultimately, the school's better for it, despite the short-term pain. Talk to me about word of mouth here, Rick, when it comes to the enrollment, the financial signals. What's the role of word of mouth here?
I mean, word of mouth is the primary way that a prospective parent will discover your school, but sometimes there can be an over-reliance upon that aspect, because then you're not investing in other key strategies. I've seen school after school that do not have a plan in place, and that's a misfire that's going to lead to potential drops in enrollment. I remember working with a school years ago when I just had started my company, Enrollment Catalyst, and The head of school called me and said, our enrollment's been declining. Need you to come in and take a look at what's going on. And my assessment identified that they didn't have a plan. They didn't have the right staff in place for their admissions and marketing effort. And so solving those issues helped to put them on the right path moving forward. So the whole point that I'm making here is that you need to have a comprehensive set of strategies. And if that's missing, then that's potentially going to be a signal for what you are experiencing with decline or what you might see down the road.
Yeah. So we've talked about environmental factors, leadership and governance signals, enrollment financial signals. I mean, why do some of these signs get ignored? What do you think? What are some of the contributing factors to why it's like, yeah, we didn't see that?
Yeah, we've always done it this way. We're going to keep doing it the same way. That's always something I always run into when I work with schools. Or maybe they're just too busy, to take advantage of spending time looking at what's going on and understanding the numbers and providing that full assessment. Maybe they're too self-confident. We're strong. We've always been this way, and people are gonna, they're gonna come to our school no matter what happens. I think you and I see this often. Unwillingness to make the tough changes, to provide accountability. Maybe there's that fear of disruption or even conflict.
Or desire to be liked.
Yeah.
Popular, rather than to focus on results. And I've seen this several times where leadership has this sort of affirming mentality where they are asking questions of their team, but they've conditioned their team to only tell them what they think the leader wants to hear. And, I think about level of trust around a workshop table. There's a direct correlation between level of trust and the quality of the work that's going to come out the other side of this. And I think the same is true when it comes to dealing with the reality that is, rather than the one that we hope to see. So there are multiple reasons why these signals get ignored. One other one is just there's just this confusion of mission faithfulness with inertia. Resistance to change because the way that we've always done things was good for an awful long time. And if we're going to be true to ourselves, then we're not ones to try something risky, to try something new. We're just going to keep doing what we've been doing, assuming that it's going to get us where we need to go. Yeah. So let's talk about turning things around. When you start to detect you're drifting in a particular area, what is that process for turning things around? And granted, it's not going to look the same every time, but let's talk through some of those contributing factors that can help with a turnaround. What do you think? Where does it start?
Yeah, at some point early on, there's going to be a wake-up call that the leader's going to face, like, our numbers are not going in the right direction here, or maybe it's going to come from the board. They're going to make a decision that we don't have the right leadership in place, and we need to make a change. And so there might be that surprise. It may result in an exodus of families, or maybe you, who knows, there could be any type of situation where you've made some poor hires and that results in some families leaving the school. So it creates this exodus of families leaving your middle school program. And so that may have caught you off guard, but it goes back to the hiring process. So it's not going to be a straight line of decline. It's going to be more of this downward spiral effect that occurs over time. But at some point, there has to be that wake-up call to the leader, to the leadership about your situation, that you've got to do something about it. We can't continue to go in this direction.
Yeah, I think there has to be a level of discontent with the status quo or the trajectory of things, which leads ultimately to a mindset shift. And And I don't think that necessarily always has to start with the head of school.
Right.
In some cases, I've seen that impetus for change come from the marketing and admissions team when they're thinking like the lead flow isn't there. We're starting to see retention issues here. And they're the ones that can be sort of the canary in the coal mine and say, we've got a problem here that we all need to pay attention to. But part of that mindset is the courage to face reality. And that courage at the most fundamental level looks like, do we have the right people in the right seats? If not, do we have the courage to have those alignment conversations or to make the necessary changes? There's also the courage, I know you talk a lot about this, Rick, to rebuild the systems and strategies.
Yeah.
Why does that take courage? I mean, people issues, I think we get why it takes courage to deal with people issues, but to deal with systems and strategies, why does that take courage?
Yeah, I think change can be hard for people, and it's how we've always done things. So sometimes people need to be pushed and challenged to think differently. They're stuck in their own ways of how they've been doing things, and so that can take courage because it's going to be work. They're going to have to step out of their comfort zone and maybe do something a little bit differently here. And implement a new system or a new strategy, or overhaul the whole thing. So, yeah. I'm always amazed that the opportunities that schools face. And it's weird. One of the ones I've been coming across in several schools is that they're waiting to open their application until after re-enrollment. That's still out there with some schools. The mindset is we got to re-enroll families first. And then we open it up to the community. But now we've missed this window of opportunity because we told people who came in the fall, they were ready to sign up, but we told them their application wasn't ready until after re-enrollment. So that's a new way of thinking for some of these schools because they've always done it this way. And so we have to push them. It has to be a mindset change and shift.
Yeah, another important aspect of that mindset shift is a move away from a scarcity mindset to an investment mindset. I've seen this over and over. There's this sort of this hyper conservative mindset, like we're afraid to spend any money, and it is less about contributing to the quality of the product and the experience. And more about making sure that we are comfortable with, level of reserves and things of this nature. Let's not spend it until we absolutely have to. But they're this sort of miserly mindset as opposed to an investment mindset. Well, the bottom line is you cannot expect a return where you have not invested.
All right.
And that's an important part of the mind shift.
I mean, I always say, sorry to interrupt you, but I always say that, if you invest in the right strategies, it should produce the right results for you, but it takes that investment to step out and to do those things. And we've worked with lots of schools that have been in situations where they're out of budget dollars, for example. But they still find a way to make an investment because they're hungry. They want to do something different, and it ends up paying off for them because you can show the results of that investment.
That's right. Part of that investment, turning things around, they're understanding what to work on, what to focus on. There are lots of things you could do. What should you do? And that's where the research and assessment process comes into play. I know in your Enrollment Catalyst program, this is a key part of what you are doing through that process. But what are they researching? What are they assessing?
So if a school's in decline, I mean, one of the things that you want to address through that process is what's contributed to this decline? Why are we going in this direction? What's the cause? And usually it's not one thing, it's a multiple set of factors and issues. And so that's why it's important to conduct the research. So focus group meetings, sitting with parents and key stakeholders to hear from them what they have to say. So if a school's in decline and I'm working with them, that's going to be one of the questions I'll ask a focus group. What do you think has contributed to the decline in the enrollment? And then I'll get their perspective and then understand from their thoughts about what we need to do to turn it around. And it's always a complicated set of factors that have created the decline, but it's also a comprehensive approach to what we need to do to be able to move forward and see that growth. So research with focus groups, with surveys, interviews. I mean, that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, whether it's a school in decline or even a healthy school that's full enrollment. They want to make sure that they continue to be that way in the future. So, and then the assessment, like for example, in my experience, I am looking at every detail, every aspect of admissions, retention, marketing, and how they use financial aid, because those are the key components of your enrollment marketing plan. And I want to understand the processes, the strategies, what's working, what's not working. It's like going to a doctor. The doctor's going to, take a look at your situation, your health, and then give you direction, a prescription as to what you need to do to improve your situation. That's what I do, and helping putting them on the right path moving forward so they can experience that enrollment growth that they want.
And I think that process of inviting multiple stakeholders into that research and assessment piece is so important, because it can be really easy for a leader to be in his or her echo chamber, where they're essentially just hearing the reverb of the messages that they've communicated within that small room. And
right.
By going through that process, you uncover things that you may not, your circles may not overlap with. And out of that, you're going to come up with, regardless of how you approach that process, you're going to come up with far more opportunities for improvement than your team can feasibly ingest.
Yes.
So I think this process of setting strategic priorities is massive, and just understanding, like, of all the things we could do, what should we do? And being able to stack rank those in a collaborative way, determine, of the candidate priorities, what are you going to move into the backlog? Like, yep, we're going to do it, but not yet. What are you going to move out of the backlog into the active phase? That's a really important conversation among leadership to be on the same page. And you've got operational priorities, you've got marketing priorities, admissions priorities, retention priorities, you've got et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention in that category, just hit on a little bit more, the importance of what I feel like are, you need to have in place annual surveys, because that's going to help you with the early warning signals. Because if your satisfaction scores or your net promoter score has been high or strong, but then you start to see a gradual slippage, you want to pay attention to that. And that will help to be able to provide that assessment that we've got some issues going on. We need to dig deeper to find out what we need to correct or improve, so that we can see these scores rebound. So that is an important part of that annual cycle of, strategies and research that you need to be doing. And we talk about that in our family journey workshop.
Yeah, that's so important. What are those recurring signals that you get to help you understand, like, how are we doing? Are we making progress in the right direction? So out of that should come some measure of strategic clarity. And when I think through the significance of strategic clarity as one of the factors of significant turnaround, your stakeholders want to know, where are we going? Do we have a sense of direction? And in my experience, key contributors to that clarity, as I mentioned earlier, mission, vision, and core values. And I see well-intentioned leaders who've experienced a measure of success that are just completely under leveraging this sort of trinity of foundational commitments. Again, the mission: why does our school exist? What is our purpose? The vision: where are we going together? And then core values: how do we behave along the way? Those are some deadly assumptions if we think that our people just understand that. But from those foundational anchors, I mean, you can leverage other strategic priorities. You think about, in terms of strategic clarity, who your school is for. In education, we want to see every kid succeed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every family is the right fit for your school. So As hard as it can be for us to say, I'm sorry, I don't think we're aligned to go in the same direction, it's a pick your pain scenario. If you don't know who your school is for, you could very easily turn the flavor of your culture sour quickly without realizing it. And then before you know it, you've got drift.
Right.
What about in terms of strategic clarity, just like prioritize investments in the core product? I mean, what comes to mind when you think about strategic clarity in the core product?
I think it's just understanding, where you're at currently with your programs and knowing what steps you need to do to improve. So it maybe there needs to be more professional development with the faculty that's going to help sharpen what they're doing in the classroom. Maybe it's addressing an issue like in a particular program that has been identified as a problem area that has resulted in some enrollment slippage along the way. It could be any number of things, but that's what the leadership team has to be so focused in on, is the everyday experience and how we're providing continued confidence in our parents that this is a place where they want to continue to stay and also pay year after year.
Yeah. We talk about strategic clarity. We've been in those conference rooms where important decisions were reached. And I've seen this dynamic where the people around the table, you can sort of see the stress level go down. And they think, okay, we've made that decision. You're the only people who know about the decision at that moment. So thinking about how you communicate strategic priorities is massively important. How you bring people along. It's like, well, we told them in an email. We told them once. We told them in that meeting after school. You have to communicate clarity over and over and over in order for it to stick. So as you determine where you're going to apply pressure, where you are going to make strategic investments, the bringing along process is massive because you can make the decision, you can have the funding set aside, but I've seen a lot of great intentions, get dashed against the rocks for lack of communication. I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Oh yeah, especially we'll see that in schools that are going through a head of school search. It's like we've got this opening in our key leadership position, and the board is meeting or the search committee is meeting, but nobody knows what the plan is. Nobody knows what we're doing to try to attract the right fit, next leader of the school. And the interview it's just a mystery. And so that's where we have to be intentional, whether it's that example or anything else related to leading the school. We have to communicate for our parents and our key stakeholders to understand.
So we talk about this turnaround process or this getting real process. Talk to me about what it means to get real in the enrollment function. So what are some components of that can contribute to the turnaround or the slow or the turn and the decline within the enrollment function in particular?
We talked about it earlier, the clear enrollment metrics. We have to understand our data and be disciplined at that and know what we need to do to be able to improve our numbers, our results. Basically, that's what we're after. So looking at an enrollment dashboard report, understanding the admissions yield rates between each level of your funnel, all those are important ingredients to what we're striving to do. That's going to help you then adjust your strategies and processes to achieve the results that you're after. You talk, Andy, a lot about the right fit family rubric, for example. Tell us a little bit more about the importance of that within the enrollment discipline.
Yeah. So, I think this is an opportunity for many schools that's sort of hiding in plain sight, because you think about every student who's enrolled at your school came through your process, and we must have done it successfully because we have a school full of kids and we've graduated hundreds or thousands of kids over the years. So we must be doing something right there. But I find that there are just a lot of assumptions that we make about who we're for. And I've seen this in workshops where you have division leads who have very different takes on what a right fit family looks like within even their divisions. or you have a seasoned admissions person who has it all right here. She's just seen enough pitches come across the plate. She knows what she's looking at. But, heaven forbid, that person is unexpectedly not there. All that institutional knowledge just walks out the door or is no longer accessible for some reason. So it's not clear how we assess family fit from a systematic perspective.
Right.
But yet this is one of the most foundational decisions we make, is like, who are we going to let in? Who are going to contribute positively to our culture? And I find that as you get clear about that right fit family rubric, that's the internal framework for assessing family fit. The public facing version of that is what we call the portrait of a partnership. So that is a reframing of that internal framework, those attributes of a right fit family. How do we talk about that through a portrait of a partnership that shows, for each of these attributes, here's what you can expect from the school, and here's what we expect of families, because the nature of partnership is it's both of us are in a give and take relationship. So that level of clarity is huge for the enrollment discipline. Another piece that I see here, even among small teams, your meeting rhythms are ridiculously important.
Yeah.
Because tracking together around the data, the metrics, project status, roadblocks, calendaring, if you don't have a consistent meeting rhythm, well, she's just right next to me, we can talk anytime we want. That sort of informal, unstructured conversation does not assure that you're talking about the right things at regular intervals.
Right.
So you and I are both big advocates of getting the meeting cadence dialed in. It's not one type of meeting. There's a cadence of different types of meetings throughout the course of the year. But that's huge for teams to be high functioning. Is your meetings aren't drudgery. They should be effective. They should be dynamic and action packed, and you should have clarity when you get up, like, what do we talk about, who's responsible for what, when. So
right. And another key discipline is the enrollment marketing plan. And that is key. And if we had a raise of hands, how many of you have your written enrollment marketing plan in front of you, where you're working off of, you're meeting about? Probably most schools do not have that in place.
True.
And it's as simple as breaking it down to, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? Who's going to do it? The time frame, we already talked about that, and also the resources. How are you going to pay for it? That's a simplistic approach of your plan moving forward. It shouldn't be, we've always done it this way. It should be, here's what we're working on actively to enhance, add to, maybe even take away from our enrollment marketing effort as we move forward. That plan is going to be a key driver and part of your discipline.
And part of that plan, tying that back to meeting cadences, you are evaluating the effectiveness of that plan.
Right.
Because I've seen this. I'm sure you have as well. I mean, most teams, their eyes are bigger than their tummies when they start thinking about what all they could commit to.
Right.
And the value is in, yes, there's value in the journey, but the value is in completing the things and finishing the things that you set out to do, or fully implementing that sustainable process. Oh, one last aspect that I want to touch on here, Rick, is, and this is, going up in terms of altitude pretty significantly here, but we think about the function of just governance, school governance, and our friend Bill Mott is the board governance expert, and we've chatted with him before in these forums. But just thinking about zooming out here, just touch briefly on the role of the governance reset in some cases in the context of turning things around.
And one of the key things that a board is involved in is setting the strategic direction for the school. That's key to know what the priorities are. Doesn't mean that they're leading the way for the nitty-gritty detail of the enrollment and marketing effort. That's not the case at all. In fact, the board should be responsible for hiring the head of school. That's their main person that they're hiring, and providing accountability to. So they need to have that expectation set up as to their role in the process. If you have board members who are in the admissions office trying to find out what you're doing and how you're doing it, that's a misstep and should be a warning signal that we've got some people out of their lane here. If you have parents calling board members to complain and the board members are engaging in that conversation, I just saw this recently in a school, that is going to lead to a bad situation. So you've got to stay in your lane. There needs to be clear perspective as to the board governance and their responsibility, and they need to make sure that they have the right leadership in place to be able to lead and guide the school. That's going to be so critical to this overall effort.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Well, we have covered a lot today on this topic of the early warning signs. So let's do a quick recap here. We think about the significance of this topic. In some cases, schools don't realize they're on that decline until all of a sudden something is bad wrong. And we don't want schools to find themselves in that position where a lot of these things were preventable if they would have done the appropriate listening, asked the appropriate conversations, and had the courage to have the conversations that they need. So when we think about, most of them are not in a position where they need to be rescued, but it's a matter of just committing to having a level of clarity and courage on the front end and sustaining that and having that permeate the organization through shared core values. Rick, any other thoughts as we wrap up today's conversation?
Well, usually it's not going to be one magical fix. It's going to be a comprehensive approach. There may need to be 7 key priorities. Some are owned by the enrollment marketing team. Some are owned by the leadership team. It's a united effort, everybody working together to try to turn around the decline that you're experiencing. So just keep that in mind.
And the majority of the folks who tune in here are sitting in marketing and admission seats, advancement seats. And some may think, I've only been here a year or two. Am I in any position to raise a hand? I mean, first, we think marketing and admissions should be represented at the leadership team level. But if you're not, I want to encourage you. You have a vantage point in the organization that no one else does.
Right.
And in many cases, you can be the one who sees some of these early warning signs, especially in the numbers. And I want to encourage, it's your responsibility to the school to raise a hand and don't be fearful about, well, does this reflect poorly on me and my role? I mean, that's a secondary conversation. The first thing is, here's what I'm seeing, and head of school, leadership team, whoever you report to, I have some concern about the trajectory of this particular dynamic or this number. And I want us to get real about either a fix or getting to the bottom of it. Don't just hide out and hope that no one stumbles into what you're seeing, and maybe it'll just self-correct, because things rarely get better on their own.
Right.
When these numbers start to trend in the wrong way, when these indicators start to go in the wrong way. So,
and no leader wants a surprise.
Yeah.
So, don't hold back.
Yeah. Very good. And then lastly, don't settle. Wherever you are, if you're in a position of strength, think about what we could be doing from this position of strength to galvanize certain aspects of our culture, of our model. What can we be doing to move from strength to strength? Yeah. And if you are in a state of decline, I mean, I would encourage you, contact Rick, have him come in and do his assessment. Well, wherever you are, it's always a good time for that self-introspection and that up, down, sideways, internal look, and see what you can see, and see if you can detect any of these things before they become problems. Well, Well, as we wrap up our time together, just quickly, I want to remind you of what's coming up. Let's see if I can get this showing again. There we go.
Yep.
Oh, just real quick, can't leave this dad joke out. Waiter, this coffee tastes like mud. Not surprised. It was just ground this morning. It's pretty terrible. Upcoming show and tell shows, the 19th of February, the 12th, 19th of March. I encourage you to go register for those. We'd love to see you there. GeekCon, our 2 virtual conferences, April 15 and 16, the Family Journey Workshop, the Admissions Playbook, July 22 and 23. And it's not too early. Go ahead and mark your calendars and carve out some budget from your new fiscal year to join us November 11, 12 at the First Academy in Orlando for the Enrollment Marketing AI Summit. That's going to be a great time. You've heard Rick and I talk a lot about Halda. We're going to be featuring Halda in one of our upcoming show and tell shows. You can contact Micah Fox on my team to learn more about that. And with that, Rick, it's been great to be with you. It's been a great topic. Thanks for the conversation. Hope it was helpful for our audience.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everyone.
So long. Thank you.